Hello, quarantine friends, and welcome to the Botanical Biohacking Podcast. COVID-19 is spreading faster than there is access to tests and space in hospitals. Thankfully, Chinese medicine doctors around the world have answered the call through telemedicine. Dr. Sandra Subotich treated a friend who got sick after her partner was at a large event in New Orleans. How did your friend first fall ill?
Julie's partner decided to go to Mardi Gras in New Orleans at the beginning of March. And when he got back, he became very ill with flu-like symptoms. So, given the current situation with COVID-19 and the fact that a number of cases were reported after Mardi Gras, he decided to self-quarantine for 10 days. So by the end of the 10 days, he was feeling better. He still had a few symptoms, but Julie decided to go visit him, thinking, he was on the mend and no longer contagious. 4 days later, Julie started to develop symptoms. So her first symptoms were fatigue, a slight sore throat, and a dry cough. So, at this point, as you can imagine, she started to get worried considering everything that's going on and everything she had read and heard about in the news. So she's worried and she's debating upon whether she should go to work or not. She doesn't want to go, but she can't afford to miss any more days. And, I think that this is an important point because many Americans are in this situation right now where they're not sure if they can afford to miss work if they start feeling sick, and they certainly can't afford to miss work to try and flatten the curve, as it were. So this is an important thing, and she was having a really hard time trying to come to terms with this.
She seems to have really been in a catch-22 situation. On one hand, she needed to be in quarantine with medicine. But then on the other, this is America, and if you aren't able to work, there's little to no safety net. How did she respond to this situation?
Because she's been in the health and wellness industry for so long, she decided to go to her immunity boosting regimen that she usually does, which includes high dose zinc, vitamin C, magnesium, some selenium, and a lot of lemon ginger tea. So, at this point, she's thinking, okay, I'm going to do this regimen. It's helped me before. I'm going to get some sleep. I'm going to do this, and it'll be fine. I'll be able to kick this thing. Unfortunately, her efforts were not effective, and within 48 hours, she had a high fever of 102.6 set in. And, here we're looking at her body is starting to produce a cytokine storm, trying to fight off the pathogen, but at the same time damaging itself.
That's so interesting because on one hand, we desperately need inflammation to fight disease. But on the other, it comes with human cellular casualties and disturbance to our microbiomes. And this can actually help the disease kill you in the long run. How did she find the middle ground to fight the disease while protecting herself?
So luckily, she finally remembered that I did online consults and could help her without having to be exposed. So she reached out to me, and I had her immediately send pictures of her tongue and ask very specific questions about her symptomology and even more specifically about her water metabolism. So her tongue at this point had a thick, greasy white coat and an overlay of yellow on either side of the midline. She, at this point, had had a very high fever for 2.5 days that wouldn't budge. Her dry cough had turned into one with thick yellow mucus. She was constipated, and her entire body ached. As her tongue and symptoms changed, so did the combination of herbs that I used. So within about a day and a half, her fever broke completely, and about 2 days later, all of her upper respiratory symptoms had cleared.
Dr. Subotich used a combination of a formula called Xiao Chai Hu Tang, which has been shown to work in a number of ways to restore water metabolism, destroy biofilm fortresses in the body, reduce stress, and interrupt viral transcription. She combined this with a formula called Sanrentang, which helps to restore homeostasis in the three main microbiomes of the body: the respiratory, gastrointestinal, and urogenital microbiomes. She also added something to this called Huoxiangjengqi, which I learned in China is the go-to everyone uses for cold and GI issues. Whenever I go to China, one of the first things I buy is Huoxiangjengqi, and I keep it in my bag. If somebody's having a cold or they drank a little too much or ate something that's a little off, I'll give them a couple of vials of Huoxiangjengqi. It's an amazing formula that'll set you right very quickly, and it's one that the general population of China, especially southern China, around Sichuan and Wuhan, this was their go-to to keep symptoms from transitioning from mild to severe. It's antibacterial, antiviral, reduces vomiting, nausea, and it regulates GI function. This was able to restore her symptoms quickly. This should be the end of the story, but real life doesn't always work like that, especially in America.
So, as you can imagine, she was thrilled to be feeling better. And I think we need to talk about the fact that there's a lot of fear and anxiety that goes along with all of this. And she had some very real moments of being terrified that she was going to have to be hospitalized or maybe not get through this. So, when her symptoms improved, especially when her fever broke, she was ecstatic, to say the least, as you can imagine. And as I said previously, she was really in a bind trying to figure out initially if she could stay home from work because she couldn't really afford to do that. But in the end, she was forced to have to do that in order to get better. So on the one hand, she's thrilled about having recovered, but unfortunately, she still has this weight on her shoulders because of the state of her finances due to having to take a week and a half off work. And this is a really hard situation that many of us are in right now.
And how is she doing now?
So thankfully, Julie is now back at work at Whole Foods, and she is really excited, actually, that she learned to be able to look at her own tongue to generally assess the state of her microbiome and her water metabolism. And she's now even having friends and family look at their own tongues and encouraging them to call a Chinese medicine doctor if their tongues, as she likes to put it, are looking a little bit funky, which is awesome. And, I think that that's really great.
This is so crucial because the tongue's polymicrobial biofilm can teach us so much. Here are the 3 things to look for on your tongue at least once a day. Look at the tongue shape. Is it fat? Is it thin? Can you see impressions where there are tooth marks? This can tell you that there's water retention. How thick or thin is the coating? If it's thick, that can be a sign of dysbiosis. If it's completely without coating, this can point to gastritis or other complications in the body. It can point that there is too little bacterial activity. Finally, we want to look at color. Is the color of the tongue itself very red or is it pale? Is the tongue coating yellow or is it white? These are things to keep track of. And this is going to be essential information for when you contact your Chinese medical doctor for both prevention and, if God forbid this should hit you or your family, you want to already have established care with them so that they can respond quickly and already understand your case, your situation, so it's very easy to adjust. So remember, tongue shape, tongue coating, and tongue color. Contact a Chinese medicine doctor as soon as possible to get some preventative strategies to keep you and your family healthy. And if, God forbid, one of you should fall ill, definitely get into contact with them, because Chinese medicine alone has not only been shown to take care of this virus, but the turnaround times and success rate in many cases is much higher. Yes, an integrative approach is great if you can get it, but at a time when testing is a rare luxury, we need to use every tool we can to fight this pandemic. If you'd like to contact Dr. Sandra Subotich, you can do so at drsandraacupuncture@yahoo.com. Thank you for listening to the Botanical Biohacking Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Miles.